Hey everyone, this is English Coaching Network, and today we're going to be talking about how to lose the fear of speaking English with a native person, and generally how to improve your overall communication and public speaking in a second language, in this case in English. I'm Emma, I'm joined here today by Anna, as we've introduced ourselves before. Anna, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. I'm
Yeah,
doing
it's
fantastic.
like
Yeah.
the typical we always joke about in English Coaching Network, we always joke about I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine.
Mm,
It's like
yeah,
I'm fine is sort of don't ask me any more questions. You don't want to talk
yeah.
about it. Fine. It can be quite passive aggressive, can't it? About natives then, Anna, what has been helpful for you? I find the whole thing quite funny of talking to natives because first of all, what does it really mean to be a native? I've done a lot of work with people from Spain, and so they automatically think that native is British or American, not necessarily the case. What is a native? And the other thing that I find interesting is that when there have been studies done on this, how actually native speakers are some of the worst communicators because a lot of us, and now I'm saying us, I can only talk from my own experience, people from Great Britain, generally speaking, we haven't got to a terribly high level of another language, speaking another language. Therefore, we expect English is the international language. We expect everyone to speak our language, in which case we don't really make an effort. It's like you should just be able to understand me. It doesn't matter if I'm talking very quickly or I'm not making any effort at all to enunciate. You should understand me because English is the international language. And if you don't, it means you're stupid. People don't really think that, but they do sort of just not make the effort. And then the person who is speaking in English thinks they feel stupid. And it's just a whole weird, hence poor communication. Anna, what has been your experience with this and being a non-native yourself, which again makes
Yeah.
me laugh because Anna's English is brilliant
Oh,
and
thank you.
she speaks better than a lot of people from Great Britain that I know. And
And
so,
now Anna is going to make a lot of mistakes right now, so
oh,
she's going to embarrass herself.
please do, just
Yeah,
like a
just
native person does. So,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so another question that sort of came to mind is, do we treat natives from, let's say, Spain in the same way as we treat natives from America or, the UK? Do you know what I mean? Like Spanish native speakers and English native speakers. So, how do we treat each other? Like for example, um, if I were to learn Spanish, right? How would I think about Spanish native speakers? Would I think about them in the same way I think about, native English speakers? Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? I,
Well, I can only speak from personal experience, and I couldn't wait to have conversations with native Spanish speakers when I was learning Spanish because to me, it was, I suppose it's a cultural thing. I studied in Seville, in Spain, and I wanted to get really into the culture, in which case I had to speak to local people.
yeah.
I think at the time it was more like I just want to learn Spanish, therefore I must speak to Spanish people. But at the same time, I was also, because I was on Erasmus, I was hanging out with a lot of Italians, and speaking Spanish to Italian people was amazing too. It was just the fact of being speaking another language, it didn't really matter. But then there's the cultural aspect of when you talk to the local people, you get more of like the in jokes, and it's just another challenge. But I was dying to speak to those people, and I would say I was made to feel very welcome as
Mm,
well.
wonderful.
I would say that probably Spanish people are a lot more forgiving of mistakes. They comment about that a lot actually. They say, why is it that we're very forgiving of mistakes when people, we're talking to, they're used to having lots of foreigners around. And then we try to be perfect and not make any single grammar mistake when we're speaking to a native, a British native.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting thing to think about because I feel like there is more pressure speaking English with English native speakers rather than speaking Spanish with Spanish native
Mm,
speakers, right? So
mm,
there is like more pressure, and maybe that pressure is coming from that idea, as you said, like some prejudices, right, ab around English and around how global and widespread the language is, right?
mm,
So that's something really interesting
mm,
to explore.
mm,
Um, my experience is very similar to yours. Like when I began learning English, I was very excited, about speaking with natives and non-natives as well, because I didn't really separate people in any way, shape, or form. I was just like, I want to speak English.
mm,
And that's the thing that I've been doing for more than a decade right now. And yeah, it's been a very fascinating and interesting experience for sure. So I've never really separated people in that way. But yes, I'd noticed when at some point in life I noticed that I was a little bit more stressed when speaking with native English speakers,
mm,
especially those I think I didn't know that well.
mm.
Um, maybe mostly in when I needed to work,
Mm,
and at work I'd use English. Maybe I would be more stressed in a working
mm.
environment speaking English rather
Yeah.
than speaking English somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm remembering now when I worked for a Spanish company and I had to answer the phone occasionally. And having lots of Spanish people sitting around me while I was answering the phone in Spanish. And I remember feeling very insecure in that, just thinking that I was getting it all wrong and that people were potentially laughing at me. And also, I remember as well telling stories when I was in groups of friends and standing up and speaking, like saying some sort of anecdote or telling a story, also feeling a bit more insecure, like everyone's looking at me, my accent is so British, what are they thinking? And I guess what both of those have in common is what we look at a lot in English Coaching Network is at the end of the day, it's all an internal experience. There's no objective reality going on. So if you decide that this is a really important situation, or you're more focused on what someone else is thinking than actually connecting to what you want to say, then that's going to be you're going to have an experience of insecurity, and then you can blame it on whatever you want on the outside. And often I find that sometimes you might have a weak spot even in your first language, but you don't really realize it. I probably back then I wouldn't particularly have liked talking on the phone, even in English, in front of lots of people, and I probably wasn't particularly comfortable telling stories in front of big groups of people talking about myself, even in my first language. So then you add in a second language, yeah, and it gives you more thinking, I suppose, and more insecurity.
I think that's another good point is that what's within is going to be without, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's going to be projected onto something external. And I believe that speaking a second language, whether it's English or any other language, it can allow you to see a lot of your like blind spots, um,
Yeah.
those things which have been with you forever, but you didn't really pay attention to them. You probably numbed yourself, instead of really feeling what's happening, what's going on. And English is an opportunity to look at yourself from, I mean, speaking a second language is an
Yeah.
opportunity to look at yourself from a different perspective
Mm.
and yeah, and see those blind spots
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
really is. It really is. And looking at how, again, what we look a lot at in English Coaching Network is how connection goes far beyond the language and your ability to use the correct grammar and the right vocabulary, which is what people get insecure and stuck on, or it's what they at least project their insecurity and their stuckness onto is I don't have the right grammar, I don't have the right vocabulary. Once I have it, then I will be confident. It's a lie. It's not true.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I can uh sign under that because yeah, I've been learning English for such a long time now and have been fluent in it for a very long time as well. And I can tell you that language is a very it's a fluctuating phenomena, like it's a constantly moving um flexible thing, you can't control it in any way. Like today you wake up, you have a headache, and your brain doesn't really work that well, and it will impact your communication and your ability to connect to
Yeah.
another human being. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing it in English or you're doing it in your native language. Oh, if English is your native, it's yeah,
Mm.
another thing. But yeah, it doesn't really matter which language you're speaking if there is, there's a problem with the inner state that's going to affect your communication, right? And how you channel your message.
Your communication and your motivation to learn and
Yeah.
I would say your ability to learn. Because when you're
Yeah.
very insecure and stressed and anxious, your capacity to learn, your motivation and your capacity decreases. And when you're more expansive, you're more connected, you're more focused, then you have more awareness without drama around your mistakes, and you just learn from
And
them naturally.
yeah. And you absorb more information, like it your brain memorizes your body, your brain, like it's the whole system, right? That memorizes all of those things without any pressure, just with ease. Yeah.
Mm. And I'm just remembering one of the things that the Spanish people have said to me a lot is, "Oh, I feel like I'm speaking like an Indian," which A is racist in itself. It's not a
Yeah.
great expression.
God,
But
yeah.
uh, secondly, it just points to the fact that I think that inner human thing we have of I'm not good enough. I, compared to other people, I'm small. The English thing really seems to have brought that out in a lot of people I've worked with, especially from Spain, but also from Japan and from other countries. And that's expressed in that sentence. I feel like I sound stupid when I speak, and I get it because I've had that. I still, if I have a bad day, I'll still have that experience speaking Spanish. Like, oh, this person thinks, oh, I've been living in Spain for so many years, and why have I still got my English accent and that sort of thing. And then I think, it, who cares? I'm not Spanish. People will say to me, I'll say, what's your goal for English? When they come to English coaching now, what's your goal? My goal is to speak like a native. It's like, okay, so go and get reincarnated then. Let's wait for the next life. Uh, which, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean you can't have fun imitating sounds. Some people have got a real skill for picking up accents and imitating sounds and they really enjoy it. Like, do that. But if that's not you, you're not really motivated by that and you just want to communicate your point and connect with people and pick up what you can pick up naturally, which is more like me. And I've picked up a lot over the time I've been in Spain, but I've never sat down and been like, right, I've thought about it, but I've never done it. Then why stress? It's part of our beauty and our strength, as we've spoken about this a lot, is our individuality and all the
Yeah.
different things we bring to the table. Who are you trying to imitate anyway, and why?
And what does it like even mean speaking like a native? Like, what kind of I don't know. How do you want to sound? Like Scottish or Irish or,
Yeah,
someone from London or someone from the USA, like, various parts of USA. It's just, yeah, it's like, what does it even mean?
yeah. And then when people say to me, "No, like you," I'm like, why? Like, why?
Yeah,
The,
it's
The
interesting because,
Scottish accent is beautiful.
yeah, and like yeah, an Indian accent
Yeah,
is
and
beautiful in its own way as
Australian and
well.
South
Yeah,
African and yeah.
any accents is wonderful, and it just adds to the variety, right? And like it's brilliant. Like we don't need to be anyone else but ourselves. So that brings us to this realization that we can actually channel ourselves through the second language. Maybe different parts of ourselves. Like very often in English Coaching Network, our members um, are worried about sounding a certain way, you know, but again, and they make it a block, that idea that, oh, because I don't speak in this way, then my English is really bad.
Mm,
But that's not true.
mm,
That's all of those little things that you create in your head that you think you need to do in order to reach that point, but it's all very unrealistic.
mm,
All we need to do is to basically explore ourselves through the language. And if, as Emma said, if it's, mimicking a certain accent or, speaking in a certain way, that's fine. But if it's not a part of your identity, if it's not who you are, then why do that?
mm,
Yeah, why don't you want to bring your culture and the music of your culture
mm,
into English? We had some Japanese members who were pretty worried about this, right?
mm.
As well. That why not speak English with a Japanese accent? That's fine,
Yeah.
as long as people can understand you.
Yeah, and we look at this a lot as well. As long as you slow down and enunciate,
Yeah.
and you speak in any accent, people will be able to understand you. If you rush because you're insecure and you think you need to talk quickly because natives talk quickly, you're lost.
Ah.
So, if you were to give one number one tip, then Anna, just to round off for today, in your experience, what would your number one tip be for losing the fear of speaking with natives and therefore improving your overall communication and public speaking in English?
Well, it's going to be a pretty probably big recommendation, but learning to find peace within yourself, with who you are.
Mm,
Because when you are rejecting parts of yourself, whether it's your culture, whether it's your
mm,
accent,
mm,
yeah, which is also part of culture,
mm,
whether it's something else outside of you, like your body or like inside of you, then
mm,
you're going to project that onto
mm,
the second language, the language that is going, or anything else that makes you feel a little bit like unsafe, a little bit like,
mm.
mm, so insecure. And so my tip number one is finding peace within yourself, understanding who you are and finding peace with that.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I would add to that, and I know this has also been your experience, Anna, and was my experience with Spanish. Get out there and speak to as many different people with different accents and different cultures as possible. In fact, that's precisely what we encourage and we provide at English Coaching Network is to bring as many different cultures and different mindsets and different people together as possible so that you are improving your overall communication. In most companies, you're going to be having meetings with people from different countries in English. You're going to be speaking to French people in English, you're going to be speaking to German people in English, Polish, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, you're not going to be speaking with native people, natives, natives. And if you are, it's just another person. And maybe that person needs to learn to slow down and connect better as well. So you can help that person by saying, please, there is no way I am going to follow what you are saying if you keep talking at that speed. Can you slow down a little bit? And then everyone is going to benefit from that.
Yeah, and the fun thing is that even if we spoke in our native language at that level, at that speed, we wouldn't be able to connect to another person,
Mm.
or understand even a bit of what the person is saying if it's just a
Yeah,
little, it's all together.
yeah,
So that's another thing.
yeah. Amazing. So there you go. If you want to go away and do something today, Anna, in terms of finding inner peace, finding connecting to yourself, can you recommend one small thing that someone could do this week, today, to lean towards that?
When we connect to ourselves, to the energy of what we are, to our soul, right? We feel that. We know what we are, right? So it's probably more about slowing down and being here now and learning to tolerate that because many people are still having a very hard time with being in the present moment. And being in the present moment doesn't mean you have to be there all the time. It's about the quality of that time, you know. Um, so dedicate like 5 minutes a day to just connecting to your energy, to who you are, and get to know that part, the entirety of you. And when you speak with a native or non-native English speaker later, just allow yourself to connect to that again and again and again. And it's something that you need to practice, it's a muscle to train for sure. But the more you become aware of where you're disconnected from yourself, the better you'll get at that. And also the better your communication is going to be.
Fantastic. So you have a little practice to do this week, plus the second challenge, which is to go and find more people to speak English to from different cultures, whether that be at work, whether that be outside of work, whether they be native or non-native, doesn't matter. Find someone new to have that experience of communicating in English and putting into practice the other tip that we've given you today. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Anna, and we'll catch up with you in
Thank
the next
you.
episode.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you.
Bye.